game bet of the season. I'm throwing it over to you, man. How are we starting this off?
Sure. We got to talk about, the betting story of the season so far is underdogs, and in particular, bigger underdogs. Yesterday, underdogs of 5.5 or higher. The Giants beat the Browns straight up. The Broncos beat the Bucs straight up. The Panthers beat the Raiders straight up. The Rams beat the Niners straight up. And the Jets did cover on Thursday Night Football. But last week, Tampa beat Detroit. Vegas beat Baltimore. New Orleans beat Dallas. Cincinnati covered at KC. And Chicago covered at Houston. Atlanta beat Philly. Week 1, New England beat Cincy. Arizona covered at Buffalo. Denver covered at Seattle. The only loss week 1 for a dog of plus 5.5 or higher was the Rams in overtime at Detroit, plus 5.5. They lost by 6. So dogs of plus 5.5 or higher right now going into Monday Night Football, 13-2 against the spread this season. And you can make an argument that one of the two beats was a pretty bad beat. So the big dogs have been cashing. And what does that tell us? That tell us there's parity in this league right now. Also worth noting, 10-4 to the under this week, heading into Monday Night Football. Week 2 was also an under week. It has been a very good start to the season for the sports. I'll tell you that right now. Every sportsbook director I talked to last week was like, yeah, everything's going great in the NFL. And I'm expecting similar reports after what happened yesterday. Drew?
Yeah, Teddy, and we got 2 Monday Night Football games. We're going to hit it right at the top, guys. Just quickly here before we get into the Week 4 slate. Other than the NFL, I can't understand why they don't do this every week, 2 on Mondays instead of 9 or 10 games at the 1 o'clock Eastern Sunday slate. But Teddy, we got Jacksonville and Buffalo. Buffalo -5 in the hook, 46-47 being the total here. First game up Monday night. Anything quickly on the Monday Night Football game?
Yeah, I'm in action on this game. We're really seeing two-way action right now. It's not a sharp square divide game necessarily. It's not a game that I expect the line to do a whole lot. It's been bouncing 5.5 pretty much all week. And from every report I've seen, books are getting two-way action at that number. So I'm not anticipating a lot of move between now and kickoff. Same story with the total. It's sitting at 46.5/47. It's not a game that's seen significant one-way action. So between now and kickoff, I'm not expecting a lot between the Jags and the Bills. You can get my play right now at my page on WagerTalk.com, wt.buzz/TC, or just visit WagerTalk.com.
And we got the nightcap here, Monday Night Football, Washington and Cincinnati. We are seeing the Bengals. There is still a -7 out there, but a lot of 7 in the hook, showing 46 in a hook, 47 being the total. Cincinnati off to the 0-2 start, but there's some trends here. Cincinnati being a good bet on week 3. Anything with the Commanders and the Bengals?
Sure, the 0-2 teams did pretty well yesterday, and that's putting it mildly. This is what the 0-2 teams did yesterday. Win straight up, win straight up, win straight up, win straight up, win straight up. The only one that didn't was Tennessee, and they were a favorite, although Cincinnati's a favorite in this ballgame, which is worth noting too. That being said, while Buffalo-Jacksonville has taken two-way action side in total, the wise guys have pounded Washington in this ballgame. They took out the 8.5s, they took out the 8s, they took out most of the 7.5. So Washington is a clear wise guy side for tonight. Pros lose too, but that's where the pro money is. This is a sharp square divide game. Pros are on the dog, the Joes are on the favorite. And we've seen a lot of under money come in. This total was as high as 49. Now leading indicator books are down as low as 46. And certainly the under fits into a lot of prevailing trends. And the under has cashed all weekend, 10-4 to the under this weekend. But for what it's worth, I made a case for the over for Washington, Cincinnati, with my big game breakdown on Wager Talk today this morning. I will tweet that. I didn't have a chance to do it before opening line report, but I'll tweet that out soon after this show is through.
NFL opening line report for week number 4. Starting right now, we got the Thursday nighter up first. NFC East battle here, Teddy. We get the Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants. We are seeing Cowboys getting bought down here, or actually faded, I guess we could call it. -4.5, -4 even showing up. That's the Cowboys as the road favorite. 43.5, 44 being the total. What are we like in Thursday night?
So like we do with every game, and the whole purpose of this show is talking about line moves, opening line report, where the money's flowing, why it's flowing that way. So with every game, I give you guys 4 different sets of lines. The first, called the look-ahead line. This is a bettable line on this game from last week. The second number is my powering number. That's just my numbers, team A, team B. I use 1.5 for most home fields. Some of the home fields I use 2, some I use 1. But between 1 or 2 for every home field. So that's my powering number. I'll give you the opener from last night, and I'm going to use a consensus opener. I track a whole bunch of different books, so it's not any one book that has an outlier number that I'm going to give you. I'll give you a consensus opener from last night, and then we'll talk about what the markets have done this morning. So the look-ahead line, Dallas and the Giants, was Dallas -7, total 43.5. My powering number, Dallas -4.5. It opened 4.5/5 last night, total of 44. And this morning, we're looking at 4/4.5. So we have seen some Giants money. Total really hasn't done a whole lot from the opener, a little bit higher than it was at the look ahead. That has everything to do with the Dallas Cowboys defense right now. So note, the look ahead was 7. Current line is 4.5. Is that warranted? I think it is. What happened to Dallas yesterday was problematic for the second straight week, really for the third straight home game, where the defense got absolutely gashed. They allowed 7.6 yards per play. Mike Zimmer, the new defensive coordinator, is clearly no Dan Quinn, the old defensive coordinator. They were outrushed in that game 274-51 by the Ravens. Now, they had an impressive comeback. The comeback started with one play, a recovered onside kick. And the worst beats in the NFL comes when someone recovers an onside. I believe it's the first recovered onside kick of the season. But that's why that final score was as close as it was. Dallas has had a chance to win at the end if they'd have gotten one stop, but they couldn't get the stop. And that's the issue with the Cowboys right now. The defense allowed 190 and 274 rushing yards the last 2 weeks. More than 220 of those yards have come before contact. In the last 2 games, opposing quarterbacks have had just 8 incomplete passes against the Cowboys. 2 games, 8 incomplete passes, and they've given up 120 points in their last 3 home games, dating back to the loss in the playoffs to Green Bay in January. Dak Prescott after the game, quote, "Make sure guys don't dwell. They can feel bad tonight, but come the morning, it's over with. If you're dwelling on that, you're not going to prepare the right way. It's going to be looking back at things you could have done, should have done." Worth noting, not much time to prepare Thursday night with travel before Dallas. Also worth noting that Mike McCarthy's name back right near the top of the first coach to be fired odds in the NFL. The Giants, I have to give the Giants a lot of credit for you. You know, they fumbled the opening kickoff. Then they allowed a touchdown on the first play. They're down 7-0 less than a minute into the game at Cleveland. And basically, they controlled the flow the rest of the way. They went 3 of 3 on extra point tries. That made a difference. But you're looking at this receiving core with Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson. They're suddenly scary weapons for Danny Dimes. You know, the key against Cleveland, 8 sacks. You know, Thibodeau, Burns, Lawrence. They're supposed to have an elite defensive line. It played like it yesterday. Really shut down the run. All that being said, they lost both starting cornerbacks in the game. And this is not a team that really knows how to win. They gave Cleveland every chance to rally from behind in the fourth quarter of that game. They were lucky the defense was able to step up in time. They got 4th down stops, 2 huge 4th down stops in the fourth quarter. Early money for the G-men. I don't think we'll see a whole lot more. Dallas is still going to go off 4.5, barring any late injury news.
Sunday, September 29th. We're going down in rotation order here, guys. 263, 264, New Orleans and Atlanta, top of the card here on Sunday, Teddy. 43 and a hook at most shops. 44 is out there, -1 and a hook. That is the Dirty Birds at home rivalry game here in the NFL, Teddy. It's New Orleans at Atlanta. Atlanta short home favorites, -1 in the hook in the ATL.
Yeah, it's worth noting, buys start next week. So starting next week, we'll have fewer games to talk about. We'll have a little bit more to go through each one because we have I think we have 4 teams on bye starting in week 5. Saints Falcons. Look ahead line here, Atlanta -1.5, 46.5. My powering number, Atlanta -1. Last night, before kickoff, this was Atlanta 1.5, 45.5. We're seeing 43.5/44 as a prevailing total right now. So from a look ahead of 46.5, current number 43.5, 44, the markets have made significant adjustments to the total for this ballgame. And certainly, you know, the Saints, after their high-flying offense, scored 90 the first 2 games. Well, yesterday, Derek Carr had 26 dropbacks, only 142 net yards. Basically, it was Chris Olave and nobody for the Saints. Only had 12 first downs. They got outgained by 250 yards to 240 yards, 460 to 219. The defense only forced 2 punts, one of which they blocked. They forced 2 turnovers. They had 2 fourth down stops. Did a lot of things right. But obviously, Clint Kubiak's offense didn't exactly click yesterday. That's putting it mildly. And it's worth noting that a couple of key injuries, the center, Eric McCoy, and that's really when the offense died, was McCoy lipped. That was early in the game. And then Cesar Ruiz also got hurt. So that's a couple of linemen. Taysom Hill wasn't able to play yesterday. Derek Carr's quote, "You knew adversity would happen at some point. It's not going to be that easy all the time." At the very end, they made one more play than we did, and that's how this game goes sometimes. So you're not getting that dig deep, oh, we lost one from the Saints. You're like, yeah, it's going to happen, for what it's worth. The Falcons scored touchdowns on 2 of their first 3 drives last night, and they got only 1 field goal against that KC defense the rest of the way. They, too, suffered in-game offensive line injury losses. Center Drew Dahlman got hurt. Right tackle Caleb McGarry got hurt. That's a team that returned all 5 starting linemen. If that offensive line isn't healthy, Micah Parsons is going to have a field day. In Dallas, for all the struggles they've had defensively, with a guy like Micah Parsons, you can blow plays up. You can do it all the time. The Saints have a similar concept defensively. They've got a defensive line that can blow stuff up at the line of scrimmage. So Kirk Cousins, only 2 of 9 on 3rd downs, 1 of 3 on 4th. Falcons' last 2 drives were both stuffed on 4th down. Quote, "I felt like we left a lot of opportunities out there in the field. I look forward to getting better." Of course, not like they got a whole lot of calls last night. Kansas City seems to be getting the benefit of the doubt from the officials as well. We'll see how well Atlanta bounces back. 2 teams looking to bounce back off frustrating losses.
Great start to the Sunday slate here, guys. With the analysis, pay attention to those offensive line injuries, particularly the center position, as we got 265, 266 up next, Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. We are seeing Steelers -1 in the hook at most shops here, Teddy. A little under money as it's, now 40. There are some shops showing 38.5, 39. What are we thinking Steelers and Colts here?
Now, note what we're seeing for this game as well. We're seeing some significant moves off the look-aheads. When we get to week 4, all of a sudden the stats start to kick in, and this year starts to kick in. And now Pittsburgh, in particular, is a team that has attracted some betting market attention after another win yesterday. Look headline here, Indy -1, total of 40.5. My powering number has have Pick'em/Pittsburgh -1. It's Pittsburgh minus a half point. My powering number. We saw Pittsburgh -1.5, -2 last night, total in the 39 range, and we're seeing 40s this morning. So we've seen some over money sidewise. It moved significantly off the look-ahead line, but not off of last night's game. Justin Fields is clearly the starter moving forward. He was good again yesterday. They did only score 1 touchdown in 4 red zone tries, but he's not making the mistakes that plagued his tenure in Chicago. Quote, "I just feel like I'm very calm out there, calm, cool, collected in the field, and really just that sense of peace out there in the field, not rushing things. Internally, my brain staying calm in the pocket, making plays when I can, just doing my job." Of course, Pittsburgh, 4th quarter, all of a sudden the offense is clicking yesterday. They had a go-ahead field goal, and then a big strike from Fields to Calvin Austin, and then ran out the clock over the last 5 minutes and pretty much, controlled the flow. Left tackle Dan Moore from Pittsburgh. It was clear the offensive line, they were just done. Cam Hayward, defensive tackle. I think we're just seasoned for these moments. Pittsburgh been very, very good in 1-score games throughout their Hall of Fame head coach Mike Tomlin's career. That hasn't changed. And Pittsburgh finally this week starting to get a little bit of respect in the markets. Indy didn't look pretty yesterday. They got the job done. They were like the Giants in a team that was trying to find ways to lose. And we'll give them credit. After allowing 474 rushing yards the first 2 weeks combined, they held the Bears to 2.3 yards per carry, although that speaks a lot about Chicago's offensive line. However, they did suffer multiple defensive injuries in that ballgame. They're already without DeForest Buckner. They lost Kwity Paye who injured a quad in that game. The safety, Kenny Moore, left with a hip injury. Both guys I don't know what the status is right now, but it's certainly a scenario where a team that has weak defensive numbers They may just be weakers. That being said, Jonathan Taylor, all we needed is one. It was a great opportunity to get going, and now we got to continue to build on this. So, they did force 3 turnovers. They did sack Caleb Williams 4 times. They did hold Chicago to 63 yards rushing. May not be quite as easy to do that this week against Pittsburgh, although the Steelers, too, not elite on the offensive line by any stretch of the imagination.
We got 10 a.m. Pacific kick up next, Jacksonville and Houston. We are seeing the Texans -4 in the hook, pretty much across the board, 45 being the total. Do note the Jaguars playing Monday Night Football. We're recording this Monday morning, guys. If you like the Jaguars, maybe look to bet them twice on next week as well. If you look to fade them, maybe fade them twice. That's something we've learned from doing the show here with Teddy Covers. But Teddy, I'll throw it over to you. Jacksonville and Houston, Texas, -4.5.
And I don't know if this is one of those that I necessarily – you might see this number come down if Jacksonville wins tonight. Yeah, you might, because my powering number on the game is only 4 for the Texans. Look headline was 4.5 and 46. My power is 4. The market's 4.5 last night, and all 4.5s this morning. Total was 45.5 last night. Now we're looking at 44.5/45. So a little bit of under money. The Jags, as you mentioned, play Monday Night Football at Buffalo. So the box score lies for the Texans-Minnesota game. The Texans outgained Minnesota for the game. They were plus 22 in yards. They outgained them yards per play, 4.7 to 4.6. But that was complete domination for Minnesota yesterday. The final score was indicative of how the game was played. It's probably the worst game I've seen from the Texans since the first 2 weeks of the season last year when they started 0-2. They were not good. 11 penalties, 2 turnovers. Defense didn't force any. They allowed 4 or 5 red zone touchdowns. D'Amico Ryans after the game. The Texans helped the Vikings a lot. Steph Diggs after the game. Obviously, it was a tough atmosphere, but a lot of it was self-inflicted. Worst game, like I said, I've seen this team play in quite some time. Returning home, in theory, is supposed to be a bounce-back spot, although the Jags are certainly going to remember the Texans sweeping them last year, which kept Jacksonville out of the playoffs and kept them from winning the division.
Huge shout out to the chat box going live right now, guys. Monday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific, NFL opening line report. We got Chris in the house, Titan CT, Have Cash, Chris B Daddy, all you guys. Thanks for chiming in. Any questions, fire away in the live chat. Also, even more important, the comments below, guys, watching on replay. I'll be in there chiming in. Teddy, of course, as well throughout the week. So feel free to fire away any questions, where you agree, where you disagree. All is welcome. Smash that like button if you're liking the content, as we got 269-270 up next. Minnesota Vikings, Green Bay Packers here, Teddy. We are seeing Packers mostly -2.5. There is a -3 out there. 43 in the hook being the total in Lambeau.
Sure. 3 games this week where I made 2 different lines. I'm going to explain it in just a minute. Look ahead line for this game, Minnesota -2. That was a Jordan Love out, 38.5. Now it looks like Jordan Love is likely to play. The markets are saying Jordan Love's likely to play for Green Bay. My number with Love out, Minnesota -1. With Love in, Green Bay -2.5. The markets opened 2 and 43 last night, expecting Love to play, and we're seeing 2.5/43.5 today. So not surprised with the starting QB in. We're seeing a little bit of, or expected to be in. We're seeing a little bit of over money for this one. Really interesting quotes coming out of Minnesota, man. Justin Jefferson. That's something I get used to for sure. We just dominated all around. Defense is definitely the number one reason. That was their largest margin of victory in 5 years. Their previous largest margin of victory in 5 years came in week 1 against the Giants. So all of a sudden, they're not just winning, they're winning by margin. Head coach Kevin O'Connell, I think we're made of the right stuff. We just got to keep proving it. Sam Darnold, career best 3-game winning streak as a starter. No turnovers again yesterday. Brian Flores, we liked him as a defensive coordinator. We liked him as a head coach a little bit. Well, he's been a monster as this defensive coordinator. They're the first team in the last 9 years to start 3-0 without being favored by more than a point in any of those games. The Super Bowl odds are dropping. Sam Darnold's to win the MVP awards are dropping. This is the quote I want to talk about. Aaron Jones, former Packers running back. Quote, "This is a special team. It's definitely different from anything I've been a part of. I can't put my finger on what that's different because I've been a part of some good teams. After that first game just with the vibe in New York, I was like, Mom, I don't know what it is. It's no stress. This is just fun. I don't know if it's the guys here. I can't put my finger on it, but it's special and I love it. Minnesota is a team that required a significant power rating adjustment for me after week 3. I bet against them with Houston. Houston couldn't have been more wrong. I won't make the mistake of undervaluing the Vikings again, at least not anytime soon. All that being said, the Packers, I mean, what a defensive showing yesterday in Tennessee. 8 sacks. That's most since 2005. They had 3 more takeaways. They have 9 this season. Now, some of that was Will Levis making mistakes. But Xavier McKinney's playing great. And Jair Alexander had a pick 6. And Preston Smith had a pair of sacks. And Devontae Wyatt has a pair of sacks. And they're still able to ground and pound 188 rushing yards. The defense allowed only 33. Green Bay's looking like a Super Bowl contender. Matt LaFleur, another positive quote, talking about how the team with the backup quarterback goes 2-0. Quote, I think that can galvanize our team. We needed everyone. That being said, if Love comes back this week, you do worry about the exhale from a team that just won back-to-back games with their backup QB.
Like that stat, Teddy. Sam Darnold, three-game win streak, longest in his NFL career, going all the way back till the USC days, man. A nice pull there as we move down the list. We got Cincinnati and Carolina up next. Of course, what Bengals playing here Monday night, we got -5 and a hook. That is Cincinnati as the road favorite. 47 and a hook being the total. Cincinnati at Carolina. Next game up here, Teddy.
Look at line here, Cincy -7, total 42.5. My powering number heading into Monday Night Football, only Cincy -6. The markets are sitting, as you mentioned, 5.5, the prevailing number right now. There are a couple of 5s out there, total of 45. Note, 42.5, the look ahead total, 45, the number last night. I'm sorry, we're looking at 47/47.5 right now. Clearly, the betting markets have given Carolina's offense a significant upgrade. Andy Dalton yesterday, 26 of 39, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns. The running backs, when Dalton could throw downfield, all of a sudden there's room to run the football. Now the box score, this is another one where the box score lies. Vegas outgained Carolina 437 to 331. Vegas won yards per play, 6.2 to 5.6. Why did they do that? Because they dominated the fourth quarter after trailing 36-7. They got blown out. The box score is lying. Andy Dalton after the game, quote, the way this game went today is exactly how you want it to go. They're not all going to go this way for us to come out and do what we did. It shows the potential of what we can be. Canales, head coach. I felt like the whole group in general showed up ready. This is really serious. This is a really serious and really focused group and something I've had to get used to because I'm so high energy. I want things to be party all the time. This group is like coaches, tell us what you need, and we'll do it. So Canales talking up his team. That being said, I don't know if Carolina is a squad you're going to be excited about backing off a win. Cincinnati, if they look good tonight, will probably attract some betting attention. That said, they'll be on a short week with travel against an opponent they're not interested in. Not necessarily an optimal spot for laying points with the Bengals. I don't anticipate this line moving significantly off of tonight's showing, regardless of how Cincinnati does. Although, even if they lose, even if Cincy loses straight up tonight, they'll still be favored by more than a field goal here, probably by more than 4.
We got the LA Rams, Chicago Bears up next, guys. We are seeing the Bears -2 in the hook at most shops. There is a key -3 in the global marketplace. 41 being the total here, Teddy. It's Rams at Bears.
Look at line, Chicago -4, 41.5. My powering number, Chicago, I had 1.75, so I call it 1.5/2. The markets opened 1.5 last night. The Bears have taken money since then, and now we're looking at 2.5/41 pretty much across the board. The Rams win against San Fran yesterday was a lot like the Raiders win in Baltimore the previous week in week 2. Fourth quarter, the home team was comfortable, or the favorite was comfortable, up by a couple of scores, and then suddenly they're not. A fake punt from LA down 14-0 kind of kept them in the game. They were playing without Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Tyler Higbee, 3 key offensive weapons. Tutu Atwell had a big game yesterday, our old friend from Louisville. Last year, remember, the Rams started 3-6 and then went on a 7-1 run in the playoffs. So, it's a team that even after the 0-2 start is still thinking big things. And boy, they looked hungry last night. That being said, they gave everything in that ball game. Kyron Williams, quote, I think these are their games where you just bring a little bit more juice. Just games where you can't wait to play, where everyone's doubting you and everyone's saying there's no way the Rams are going to win. The Rams are going to start 0-3. We feel it for sure, but it's something that fuels us Can they match that intensity again here on the highway in Chicago? And for the Bears, the offensive line continues to be a problem. And again, the Bears had 26 to 15 first down edges. They were 9 of 21 third down attempts. There were 4 or 5 on fourth downs in that ball game. But Caleb Williams is under constant duress. The offensive line can't blow holes open for the backs. They ran backs 28 for 63 yesterday. Caleb Williams had 52 pass attempts and 4 sacks. Chicago scored only 15 points. That's the wrong ratio. Cole Kmet, tight end, quote, "This is not who we want to be. There were definitely some good things that happened for us, but at the end of the day, it's about winning football games." Matt Eberflus, who's now, I believe, 11 and 26 straight up as the Bears head coach, quote, "We left one out there Sunday. We're encouraged, and there's a lot of positivity in our locker room. We'll look ahead, and each guy needs to ask himself how we can get better to start getting victories." So Chicago feels like they should have won that game and let it get away. The Rams probably lucky to win their game. We'll see if they can match that intensity. Advantage Bears, and the market from a motivational standpoint, and the markets are certainly adjusting to that, with Chicago bet up to 2.5 this morning. And of course, the Rams injury report still not very pretty.
We got a couple 10 a.m. Pacific kicks left here, guys, as it's Denver Broncos, New York Jets. Across the board here, Teddy, we're seeing -7 on the Jets. There is a one -7 in the hook out there at Caesars. Total of 38.5 is the Broncos visiting the Jets in MetLife.
The look-ahead line was 8. 37 and 8 was the total. Jets -8. My power number was 7. Last night, there were 7.5s and 8s out there, which I was surprised by. Well, they didn't last till this morning. The Jets down to -7. So the sharp money took out all the +7.5, took out all the 8s. Total 38.5 last night, and still that way this morning. So we're not seeing a whole lot of movement on that just yet. Broncos, impressive performance in Tampa yesterday. No question about it. They allowed just 4 yards per play. The defense forced 2 turnovers. They stuffed Tampa on a pair of key fourth downs. 7 sacks in that ball game. And Bo Nix is going to get a lot of credit. He still has 0 NFL touchdown passes. And he didn't throw any picks, but he 2 near interceptions. And he lost a fumble that got negated by a Bucs penalty in yesterday's game. So while Denver looked good, Nix, to me, is still very much a rookie QB, and obviously he'll be going against quality defense this week in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Bo Nix, quote, "It felt great. We played really well. We went out there and executed at a high level. That's what it's supposed to feel like when you get in the locker room. The guys were really excited. You put so much into the week. You put so much effort, time, and energy, and that's what these moments are about." That's not a bet on quote for next week. Sean Payton, quote, "I say this and I mean this. It's so important. And I include myself in the offensive coaching staff. It's our job to paint a perfect picture for this player. And if we do that, and when we do that, this guy is going to be something." So Payton, of course, taking the credit for any success that Bo Nix might have. The Jets, pretty dominant against the Pats on Thursday Night Football. First downs, 27-11, 10 of 15 on third downs, 400 total yards to 139, 5.7 yards per play to 2.9. They had 40 minutes of possession. And, of course, the third straight game where the Jets had at least 3 touchdowns on offense. After playing that grueling stretch to open the season, less rest, 3 days, they finally got a little bit more rest here. Sometimes that's not always a positive sign. Drew?
Teddy, we got the last 1 o'clock Eastern kick up next. You just mentioned, the Denver performance against Tampa Bay. Well, the Bucs are the next game up here. Philadelphia Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We are seeing Eagles -2 at most shops. There is 2 and a hook out there. 45 being the total in Raymond James.
Yeah, so this is another game where I made 2 lines. I used 2 lines for the Packers, for the Eagles, and for the Chargers. The look ahead here was Tampa pick 47.5. My number with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, Philly -1. Without that duo, and I'm calling them a pair, Tampa -2.5. So I'm giving 3.5 points for Philly's receiving core, which may not be enough because that offense without him didn't work. Dallas Goedert New Orleans made a defensive gaffe that allowed Dallas Goedert to make a play, and Philly found a way to win the ball game. But make no mistake about it, this is not an offense that is going to click on all cylinders if they don't have not either of their playmaking receivers. So that's certainly something worth paying attention to in the marketplace. And obviously, you talked about the numbers for today, where we saw Philly open 2/2.5 last night, pretty much still sitting there this morning, total of 45. That's a number that tells me that the market's at least expecting to see Smith and or Brown this week. Philly had gained 6.9 yards per play on offense and allowed 4.0 yards per play on defense. They had a 460 to 219 yards advantage, a 20-12 first down edge, and they were still trailing with under 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter and barely allowed. Saquon Barkley had the one huge touchdown run, but they got stopped on fourth down twice. The last drive before halftime at the goal line, the first drive after halftime, they had the 2 turnovers. It's an offense that's making mistakes. Nick Sirianni after the game. Last week was rough. Our guys had to pick ourselves off the mat. Every one of them did after they lost that game to the Falcons on Monday night. You have to overcome those things. I'm so proud of these guys for doing that. So I don't know that I love this spot here. For Philly, they just bounced back off of Monday night. For the Bucs, they gained only 4.0 yards per play. They had 2 turnovers. They went over to fourth downs. Mayfield was sacked 7 times. It was a complete no-show game. Mayfield, quote, "There are a few things we need to look at the tape and get fixed." No shit. This is a good lesson for our team overall. You have to prepare like you're playing in a playoff game every week, or this can happen. It's a good lesson for the young guys who haven't seen it before, what you need to be prepared for and how detailed you need to be. It is worth noting the injury report for Tampa isn't pretty. Antoine Winfield couldn't play. Vita Vea didn't play. Luka Godicke didn't play on the offensive line. They've got cluster injuries in the secondary right now. We'll see how healthy their cornerbacks are by the time this weekend rolls around, and obviously how healthy Philly's receivers are.
Teddy, we're turning the page here to the afternoon kicks, 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. It's Washington and Arizona, highest totaled game on the week 4 slate. We are seeing 49 and a hook. Actually, there's a key global book at 50 and a hook here now. -5, -5.5. That is Arizona at home. So it's Washington at Arizona. Next game up here, Teddy, afternoon kicks.
Look ahead line, Arizona -5, 49.5. My powering number going into Monday Night Football, Arizona -5. The markets are at Arizona -5/5.5. And as you mentioned, total 49.5. Washington plays tonight. If they look good, this line will probably tick down a notch or two. If they look bad, this line will probably tick up a notch or two. But we're not going to see Arizona laying 7 here unless something happens. There's an injury situation, and we're not going to see Arizona laying 3 either unless something pops up. The Cardinals and of course Commanders play Monday Night Football at Cincy this evening. Arizona didn't get any breaks yesterday in the sense of they had a beautiful pick 6 right before the 2-minute warning in the first half, and instead it got the refs waved it off and said it was already at 2 minutes when it was clearly at 2:01 on the clock when he snapped, but it didn't matter. The refs waved off the play, done and done. And Arizona didn't play well enough to win. They allowed 187 rushing yards on 43 carries. They were held to 1-9 on third down. They only had 23 minutes of possession. Kyler Murray, we had a lot of opportunities to make something happen and win that game. They made more plays than us. That's how it goes. This quote stood out to me from Murray, though. I'm excited about the road ahead. A scenario where he's already looking ahead to next week. Jonathan Gannon, I did think we battled. We fought coming out of halftime. We were resilient. If we keep playing like that, clean up some mistakes, we'll be back on track. Arizona, too, with injuries to their offensive line. That could be a concern for this one because for all the time that Kyler Murray supposedly spent with his receivers this past offseason where he, quote, lived in the training facility, the chemistry between Murray and his receivers is okay, but it hasn't been elite. I think some of that has to do with the poor offensive line play from Arizona. And their defensive line has been gashed pretty significantly as well.
Making our way down here. Teddy doing a great job as always, guys. Got to remind you, most action-packed time of the year, and you can get 30 days free here. If you buy a 90-day all-access pass at WagerTalk.com, you get 30 days free on top of that. Huge savings there for Teddy Covers or Drew Martin. And a special this week, Teddy, for the NFL opening line report, only going out to you guys watching. If you buy Teddy and myself, Drew Martin. You'll get $50 back, WagerBucks. Just email in to the office. So if you get both of us, you get that on top of the already huge savings, guys. Most action-packed. We get NFL, college football, MLB playoffs coming up. We got college basketball around the corner, NBA as well. Teddy's always hitting that hard, guys. So huge savings there. Check out the deal page. Most action-packed months and 30 days free. Plus, on top of that, Teddy covers Drew Martin. If you buy us both this week, $50 back in WagerBucks. Just email the office. We'll make that happen. So, Teddy, good promos up here at WagerTalk.com, guys. We got the NFL, college football, Major League Baseball playoffs going right now. 281, 282, New England and San Francisco up next. We are seeing 49ers 10 and a hook as the favorite. There is a minus 11 out there, 40 being the total.
Yeah, Drew, for what it's worth, I'm going to swear right here, but I'm not fucking around and you're not fucking around. You want to get on board with either of us, this is a great opportunity to take advantage of that package. Again, $849 will get you 2 cappers for 4 months. Check it out. Right now is the time to take advantage of that if you want to get on board. If you don't, we appreciate the likes, we appreciate the follows, we appreciate the comments. You know, I really appreciate those of you guys who buy, but you don't have to buy to be a fan of this show. And the thing we probably appreciate the most, tell your friends about it. Thank you. Let's talk about New England and San Francisco. Look headline here, 49ers minus 9.5, 40.5. My powering number, San Fran, minus 11. Markets open 10.5/11 last night, total of 40. And that's basically where we're sitting this morning. More 10.5s than 11s right now. So New England had a game plan coming into the season. They wanted to run the football and play defense. Unfortunately, right now they have cluster injuries on the offensive line. That was a real problem with the Jets, and that's probably the first thing that I have to talk about in terms of my analysis for New England moving forward is look at the injury report for the offensive line. They got out first down 27-11 against the Jets. They gained 139 total yards, 2.9 yards per play. Now, look, rookie coaches on Thursday night are never prepared. That's a big part of the reason why I bet the Jets last week, which I didn't expect New England to have a good game, and they didn't. Less than 20 minutes of possession. But that offensive line concerns, that's huge. Jacoby Brissett after the game, honestly, it wasn't our night. Just wasn't our night. I don't think we did anything well, to be honest with you. And Mayo after the game, May got some time. Drake May got some time in the ball game after it was garbage time. And the head coach, Jared Mayo, was like non-committal on who's going to be the starting QB. And then before the weekend started, he's like, Jacoby Brissett's going to be our QB. We're not putting this rookie quarterback behind that offensive line right now. Basically, Mayo was saying, he talked about how tough Brissett was because there were a lot of protection breakdowns this past week. And we may see more of that against this week because one thing San Fran can do, they can get after it at the line of scrimmage. San Fran lost the game they should have won yesterday. Blew a lead of 14 points or more for the first time since 2018. They're under 500 now for the first time since Brock Purdy became their starting QB. They led by double digits in the fourth quarter. Jake Moody missed a field goal. Then Stafford had Atwell for a big completion. And then they had Ronnie Bell dropped a pass that would have put San Fran in field goal range again. Probably clinched the game. And instead, they punted. And then Xavier Smith took his first career punt return, 38 yards. Nick Bosa, plenty of opportunities. I can only speak for myself, and it wasn't good enough. We've got to close them out. We have a chance. It's definitely a rough start. But we've been through some tough stretches before. We just have to stay together. They were without Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle in that ballgame. Certainly worth noting, San Fran kind of fighting with one hand tied behind their back. That being said, they won the time of possession. They won the first downs. They won yards per play by more than a yard. And Brock Purdy had 9.3 yards per pass, and they were sacked only once. So it's one of those games you're like, that was just one of those games, man. We should have won that. I did not downgrade San Fran off the performance. I did downgrade them off their injury report. True?
Teddy, we got two 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific kicks here before we get to the Sunday nighter. It's the Cleveland Browns and the Las Vegas Raiders up next. Pick'em or Browns -1 is what I'm seeing right now, Teddy. 37 and a hook as the Browns heading to Sin City, right down the road from your house here to face the Raiders.
Sure. Look headline, Cleveland -1, 39.5. My powering number is Pick'em for this ballgame. The market's open, Cleveland -1, 37.5 last night. And that's basically what we're seeing today. There are some 38 out there, but this line hasn't moved a whole lot off of last night's opener. both these two teams were pretty awful yesterday. Deshaun Watson got sacked 8 times. The offensive line didn't hold up at all. They're missing both starting tackles and more. They had only 69 rushing yards. The passing game was Amari Cooper and nobody. 217 total yards, 3.4 yards per play against the Giants. 3 linemen hurt. Jedrick Willis, Wyatt Teller, James Hudson. James Hudson, by the way, is the backup already. So, and Cleveland had so many chances to win that game. They fumbled it away. They got stopped twice on downs. The offensive line simply could not control the flow. And that's a problem. The Raiders, well, that's a box score that lies. They outgained Carolina by 100, 1 yards per play. But of course, we talked about that earlier, how they were trailing 38-7. They dominated the fourth. Let's see, they entered the game last in the NFL in rushing, and they gained just 55 yards on the ground. Remember Luke Getsy from Chicago and how he would get booed off the field? And everyone's like, Luke Getsy can't be an offensive coordinator anymore. And then the Raiders hired him. Well, he got booed off the field in Vegas yesterday. Antonio Pierce after the game went nuts. The scheme wasn't good enough. The design of the plays wasn't good enough today. What we thought was going to work didn't work. On the grass, we didn't execute. Nor do we put forth the effort, to me, that we put up in games past. As the game went on, I think there was definitely some individuals that made business decisions and will make business decisions going forward. And, well, we got our ass whooped. I would have booed us too. That's a bet on quote for next week, for what it's worth, if the Raiders are good enough to actually beat somebody of quality. Worth noting, Aiden O'Connell Minshew got benched in the fourth, and O'Connell came in the second half. But from all indications, it's still Minshew's job moving forward as a starting QB here in Las Vegas.
Last Sunday afternoon kick here, Teddy. We get Kansas City Chiefs, LA Chargers, AFC West battle here with the Chiefs minus 7-point road favorites, 39 and a hook. There is a 40 out there. So it's Chiefs at Chargers from Southern California.
And it's funny, the stuff that bugs me after the show is not Kevin O'Connell, it's Aiden O'Connell for the Raiders. Kevin O'Connell's the head coach, different guy. So I apologize. With all that bug makes me crazy. I get off air, I'm like, oh man, I botched that guy's name or something. And I think about it afterwards, and it's I got to spend especially at this time of year where it starts getting real busy come October. You got to be able to put that stuff out of your head. Chiefs and the Chargers. Look headline here: Kansas City -3, 43.5. I've got 2 numbers for this game. One is a with Justin Herbert, and one is without. With Herbert, I got KC 4. Without Herbert, I got KC 9.5. I got Herbert worth a lot. But I make 2 numbers for that, and the markets are right in between right now. This is truly a Herbert is questionable type of number. 25 years ago, when I first moved to Vegas, this game would be off the board. In the modern era, they kind of put something in the middle, and I respect them for doing that. I mean, Kansas City can run and they can stop the run. 128 rushing yards last night. Atlanta running backs just 23 of 63. They allowed touchdowns in 2 of the first 3 possessions, and just a field goal the rest of the way. It's all dink and dunk for this offense. One play of more than 17 yards against the Falcons. They're not throwing downfield. And they keep settling for field goals. They had 3 field goals in Atlanta. They had 2 field goals in the opener against the Ravens. They had 2 more last week against the Bengals. Mahomes after the game, quote, "It helps when you have a defense that's been in those moments before and is able to make those big plays. It's a team game, and we're winning games, and I feel like we're going to start getting better and better each and every week." Kansas City certainly has a Super Bowl-worthy roster. They are the best team in the NFL on paper, the highest-ranked team in my power ratings by a couple of points right now, and not a team I'm necessarily looking to jump in front of. That being said, KC is not a value-laden team necessarily when you talk about teams that are attracting a fair bit of attention week in, week out. Chargers, it was pretty ugly yesterday. They only ran 45 plays the whole game, 168 total yards, 3.7 yards per play. The final score was 20-10. The first downs, they only, 10 first downs, 20-10 first downs as well. Herbert, was limped off the field, and Taylor Heineke came in and wasn't any good either. He said Herbert is hopeful he'll play against the Chiefs. Heineke's the guy who just came on the team. Of course, Easton Stick was the backup last year. It was pretty awful. Heineke is a moral equivalent of Easton Stick. He certainly was yesterday. And Joey Bosa got hurt in that ball game. He only had 14 snaps the previous week. The left tackle, Rashawn Slater, got hurt. The right tackle, Joe Alt, got hurt. And I'll tell you what, the Chargers quit in the fourth quarter of that game. I don't see that very often in the NFL. I was really surprised to see it from a Harbaugh team. There was nothing. Nothing. They didn't. Sometimes the team takes a punch and they'll punch back. They didn't have a lot of punch back yesterday. Again, the quote from Dan Moore, Steelers left tackle, it was clear to the offensive line that they were just done. That's definitely something worth noting when you're talking about the Chargers will be underdogs again in this ball game. Teams that show quit more likely to do so in a game when they're a dog. They're a favorite, although probably not against a divisional rival. That being said, I did not like the way LA responded to adversity yesterday, and that's something to pay attention to moving forward.
Absolutely, Teddy. Great point there, guys. As we got the Sunday Nighter up next, 287-288 Buffalo and Baltimore. We are seeing Ravens -2 in the hook. There is -2 out there as well. 45.5, 46 being the total. Of course, Buffalo playing Monday Night Football, but it's the Bills at the Ravens Sunday Night Football here, Teddy.
So last week, we tried to do the show on Monday. We got through about 3 games, and then literally the internet blew up. There was a fire outside where our servers are hosted, or inside where our servers are hosted, and that was the end of Monday, the show on Monday. And we tried it again on Tuesday. And Drew, you had previous engagement on Tuesday. We had Joe Ranieri come in and host for Tuesday's show, for the show on Tuesday. And I love having Joe on, but I'll tell you what, you and I have been doing this show long enough now. The one thing that happened with Joe that I want to talk about here is that we ran super long. We were like an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes. And usually when I'm on with you, we're trying to get in, we're trying to do 50 minutes. I ain't doing that today. And if Joe, we can run an hour for Joe, we can run an hour for you. So I'm going to give you the info I have on the last 3 games and not try to rush through them. Buffalo and Baltimore. Look ahead line here. Baltimore -1.5, 45.5. My powering number going into Monday Night Football. Baltimore -1 in that ballgame. The markets last night were at 2.5 across the board. Total split between 45.5 and 46. And as we head into Monday Night Football, there's a 3 that popped up, but it's still mostly 2.5, so 45.5/46. The markets haven't really moved all that much between Baltimore and Buffalo. Obviously, the Bills play on Monday Night Football against the Jags. I'll say this: if the Bills dominate that game and win 31-3, they ain't going to be catching 3 in Baltimore next week. I really don't think so. If it's a more competitive game, if the game's close to the point spread, they're much more likely to be right around this number. As for Baltimore, they gained 7.6 yards per play against Dallas, 45 rushing attempts, 274 yards, only 15 passes. That's the love. That's the way they want to play. They have 13 penalties. They did give up a recovered onside kick, and it was a fluky play. They hit it right to the Raven guy, and he just missed it. And that kind of started the Dallas rally. Recovered onside kicks go a long way towards comeback because you get another possession against a tired defense, and then all of a sudden momentum shifts, the crowd gets into it. But Baltimore got punched in the face hard. Boom, boom, boom. I thought Dallas was going to come back and win that game. And then what happened? They needed 1 first down. They hadn't been able to get one. Came on the line, they got the first down. Now, they did fail to hold a 10-point fourth quarter lead in the loss to the Raiders. Here they need to let a 22-point fourth quarter lead slip away. But they've been outscored now 39-14 in the fourth quarter so far this season. That could be a problem in a game where they're laying points against a quality foe.
Teddy, love it, man. I guess we still have a chance to make it in, 59 minutes or less here. And do want to give a shout out to the chat box. Yeah. A bunch of questions coming in, some good ones as well. Rob Lynch asking question, are the run woes for Chicago all down to the O-line, or is Swift the problem? Yes. Also, I'd throw in there Caleb Williams as well, rookie quarterback. We can't forget that. Any quick analysis there on the Chicago offensive line, Teddy?
It's the same problem for Chicago. They've had it for a half decade now, more than that. It's an offensive line issue. If the offensive line couldn't hold at the line of scrimmage, they can run the football. They've got weapons. Dude, Chicago's receiving corps, and they haven't had Keenan Allen healthy. And Chicago's receiving corps is making plays, capable of making plays, but they haven't been able to control the line of scrimmage. If you can't control the line of scrimmage, you can't have a balanced offense. So, yes, it is an offensive line problem. That's where I'm pointing the finger in Chicago.
Teddy, we got Chris B asking LA traveling east an angle question mark. What about NFL teams west to east to west? How much does that factor into your handicap?
Well, we had the Chargers stay out east last week, and they played like they were a West Coast team traveling east.
Right.
So it can and does happen. We're all looking for angles. All right. I'm never going to make a bet just because a West Coast team travels east. All right. I'm never not going to make a bet just because a West Coast team travels east. We're trying to build cases. If you want to build a case against LA, you can certainly build a case, say, hey, it's not a great scenario for LA, a West Coast team traveling east. But McVay's track record, one thing that I like to look at is the specific numbers. What's McVay's track record in these roles? I don't have them offhand, so that's something I'd have to look up. But it's something I would look for and pay attention to, because there are certain head coaches who've done, Shanahan's been pretty good with San Francisco, West Coast team traveling east. Other coaches, not quite so good. And difference if it's a 10 a.m. start out here in Vegas, or a 1 p.m. start time versus an afternoon of 4:25 games versus an 8 o'clock game. So you need the start time. You can't just say, they play an East Coast team. When you're doing your database research, that sometimes makes it a little bit difficult. You kind of have to go through game by game and figure it out.
Teddy, one more question. Also a point. You bring up O'Connell, the names. I always think names are overrated. I mean, it's good for broadcasting, but really what does the name really matter as long as you got the matchup right? So wanted to throw that out there. Also, you bring up quote unquote quit with the Chargers. It's a big handicapping angle for me in college football, particularly down the stretch when a team's out of it. If I find quit, I will bet against that. And it's not that the number doesn't matter. It's just very difficult for odds makers to price in quote unquote quit, because it kind of, you let go of the rope. So if the other team's running it up, man, it can get ugly. That's college football. In the NFL, you mentioned it. It doesn't happen too often, but I mean, how big of a part of the handicap is that for you?
More so for in-game betting. You know what I mean? Than for pre-snap betting, than for pre-flop betting, or pre-game betting, or however you want to describe it. For in-game, it's something you want to pay a lot of attention to. How teams respond to adversity, and I don't worry about it. I mean, if it happens once, you note it. If it happens multiple times, now you start to bet it. So am I going to bet against the Chargers in this week because they quit last week? Hell no. It's a step up spot, not a step down spot. In another situation where they're facing some adversity, it's something that we'll pay attention to in game.
Absolutely, Teddy. Well said there. I'm picking up what you're laying down here to the chat box, asking the questions. Got here in the comments below. Fire away any questions where you disagree. Teddy will be in there chiming away. We'll also on next as NFL opening line report, 10 a.m. We got Nighters for week 4 up Teddy, September 5th. Another 2-night Monday night game, Monday football. 30 Eastern. It's Titans and the Miami Dolphins from Harvard. Pick Dolphins -130 being interesting. Just off the top of my head, I believe the Dolphins played in Hard Rock last Monday night football. Maybe game actually. Either way, Teddy, 37 pick'em, Miami -1. Anything in Hard Rock on the Monday nighter?
Look at line, Miami -2.5, total of 40. My powering number, Miami 1, and I'm dicey with that. Lines open, pick /1 last night. We're seeing that pretty much pick this morning, 37.5 last night, 37s this morning. Miami required a significant power rating adjustment. All right. It's one thing if you have a bad performance on Thursday night football without your starting quarterback. It's another thing when you follow it up with extra repair and look like they did yesterday in Seattle, where it was, they were awful. There was no sugarcoating it. Now, Seattle wasn't great. There was still a chance for Miami to get back in the game in the fourth quarter, but it's a team built on Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle. And when you don't have Tua, Tyreek and Waddle are non-factor. 6 combined receiving yards on 10 targets between that duo yesterday. Skylar Thompson took 5 sacks on 19 pass attempts before he was knocked out of the game. The third stringer, Tim Boyle, who's bounced around the league and no one ever wanted him back. Finished with 79 yards passing attempt. 1 of 12 on third downs, 0 of 3 on fourth. They were outgained by 2.5 yards per play. So after the Bills blowout loss, and now this non-competitive game, they were +2 in turnovers against Seattle, by the way. The markets have made a big power rating adjustment, and obviously a team with no quarterback right now, and offensive line injuries, and injuries in the secondary. It's a problem. It's a real problem for Miami, and the markets have crashed on this team. Titans yesterday, 42 pass dropbacks, 9 handoffs to the running backs. That's the wrong ratio. Only 33 rushing yards. That's the wrong ratio. A team that's supposed to be tough allowed 188 yards on the ground. That's the wrong ratio. -3 in turnovers. That's a problem. Will Levis making head scratchers, man. This is a team that's 6-21 their last 27 games, and they're road favorites, or pick them on Monday Night Football. Head coach Brian Callahan, first-time coach. It's embarrassing and disappointing. I've got to be better than I've been, and this is frustrating and unfortunate, and not what I thought we were capable of to start the season. And Levis got 8 turnovers in 3 games, including 2 interception return for touchdowns. All right. Yeah, this is not a team I'm comfortable laying a price with. I'll tell you that. Ask them to win a game. It's likely to be an ugly Monday night affair.
Well, we get the other Monday nighter here, Teddy. Seattle and Detroit, last game for the show, 46.5 to 47.5 being the total. We are seeing the Lions -4 in the hook in the Motor City.
Yeah, look at line here. Detroit 4.5, 48.5. My powering number's only 4 for this ball game. The market's at 4.5, 47.5 last night. We've seen some under money since then. 47 now, the prevailing number. So Seattle, I had to upgrade Seattle in my power rankings. I didn't upgrade Seattle as much as some other teams that have gone 3-0. Geno threw another 2 bad interceptions yesterday, both passes that are tipped at the line of scrimmage. It's been a problem for him throughout his career. They did run through the Dolphins' D like Swiss cheese. And after facing New England one week and then Miami the next week, Zach Charbonnet was different. And the defense held up a Miami team with no quarterback to 1-12 on third downs, 0-3 on fourth. They were -2 in turnovers. They had 11 penalties. They still won the game by 3 touchdowns. Geno Smith, all that matters is we win. However we get that done, I'm not really particular about that, but 3-0, it's a great start. It's worth noting they're the first team since the Steelers in 1979 to start 3-0 and hold each of those opponents to under 150 yards passing. But they're certainly stepping up in class here in terms of a passing game from what they faced. And they lost significant depth on their defensive line yesterday. The rookie first-rounder Byron Murphy got hurt. Leonard Williams got hurt in that game as well. So we'll have to see the status of those 2 guys. The Lions really controlled the flow in Arizona yesterday. The offense didn't do much after halftime, but then the defense was able to control the flow. Dan Campbell, quote, "That's what makes you feel pretty good. I feel we can play different types of games. We can do whatever we need to with special teams, defense, and offense. We just got to find a way to win every week. That can be different every time." The second half, man, those stops, stop after stop after stop. Detroit, for as good as they've been, they haven't been a great point spread team so far. They don't have a big betting bandwagon, perhaps as big as it should be just yet. Seattle, having covered all those numbers, whatever. This is an interesting game. I'm not sure. Seattle's worth noting. Seattle did go to Detroit and win straight up last year in overtime. They're the better team in that game. Now Detroit gets a chance for revenge. We'll worry about that next week. Don't know what I'm playing yet.
Teddy Covers at Teddy_covers on Twitter. At Drew Martin Bets is where you can find me. Guys, remember the promo, the most action-packed time of the year. Get a 90-day all access. You get 30 days free. That's over $300 of value. And special for the show this week, if you get both Teddy Covers and Drew Martin, you get $50 back in wager bucks. Just email the office there. So, yeah, we'll make that happen, guys. Huge promos for the show. Teddy, I'll throw it back over to you, man. Great show as always. Anything else before we shut this down?
Oh, gosh, no, I'm out of steam, man. Listen, I appreciate all the comments. We appreciate all the likes. There's like 170,000 people that are following the WagerTalk YouTube channel right now. It's sick. And people are so complimentary. Thank you. Really. Don't worry, my head's not going to get swelled. I'm okay. I'm just a guy. But I appreciate all the compliments. And if you do like the show, we appreciate it when you tell your friends about it. That's it. Have a great week, guys. Thanks.
Check it out. Teddy Covers, Drew Martin. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Smash that like button, comment below. We'll be back 10 a.m. Pacific time on Monday for week number 5. Come back and join us. Until then, cash those tickets.